All right, people. All right. We is live. Let me just bring this up here. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Share it out from here. Just sharing the love, people. I gotta keep this low. Just in case you can see my password. Not. It's thumbnail. Right, so, un momentico. Damas y caballeros. Just hang on, almost done. There it is. I can see it. What the hell? Actually, that's a good point to check the audio. Look at that, people. Is the audio clear? Some people were complaining that it was a bit low last time. Is that loud enough, or do... If it's not loud enough, obviously get your ears tested to start off with. Alright. Right. But I mean, if it's not loud enough, let me know. आप ही की सेवा के लिए तो यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं, you know, आपके शुभ चिंतक. Right, so let me see. That's almost done. This is so awkward having to work around this mic, I tell you. Lillahi alhamd. Alright. Inna alhamdulillahi wa kafah. All I can hear is gibberish. And it mufti. Allah. Oh, I thought audio is fine. Inna alhamdulillahi wa kafah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa. Wa ala ibadi alladhina irtada. ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم. Ahlan wa sahlan bikum, marhaban, Juan Ying Layth. Bienvenidos a todos, Bakhair Ragle, Khushamadid, people, and Swagatam. So, ¿qué está pasando, mi gente? ¿Qué lo que? What's going on? I haven't actually had a haircut. I need haircuts overdue. Kya kare? You know, this life, Where does the time go? I think it just all goes in TV series and sleep and... can you tell us who needs to be Mufti on a serious one? Yaar, why are these people straight away so serious? Why so serious, you know? So, let me do the usual, people. Those of you... I was about to say haramis that haven't still liked my page. Abe kiska intezar kar rahe ho? Like it, yaar. So that's my different social media outlets, people. Facebook, abhi yahan sust ho gaye hum. That's my Facebook public page. A recent clip I put up for those of you interested in Maliki fiqh, it's still there. And as always, people, somebody had said about the naughty, so look.
Naughty. You naughty teasing me?
I thought I'd share that. Alright, some people had sent that to me. I don't really watch sports, but that's meant to be an incredibly famous footballer, Pogba, I think. So... well, I'll share that. Moving on to what I am very interested in. Shairi,
जहाँ देखो इश्क के बीमार बैठे हजारों मर गए लाखों तैयार बैठे लड़के अपनी जिंदगी बर्बाद लड़कियों के पीछे तालीम बर्बाद फिर बोलते मौलवी साहब दुआ करो बेरोजगार बैठे
मौलवी साहब दुआ करो बेरोजगार बैठे हैं. This is it. This is what happens. You know, when when a person is so immersed trying to find this romance, and then life is passing by. So people will be taking a look at quite a few things today. I want to look at the issue of Fadaq, a slightly more detailed overview. I know a lot of people had been asking me. I thought, chalo, it's a good opportunity to do that. Look at this. Abdul Alim says, it's the first time I'm watching Mufti Abu Layth. So, ahlan wa sahlan bik. Marhaban. Khush Hamadid. And what on earth were you doing up until now? Yeah. Why were you wasting your life? Right. So, somebody said Arthur Decker again. I don't know what again. Right, so we'll be taking a look at the Fadaq issue. That's something. Also, I'll be taking a look at the Ajwa dates, revisiting that, showing some more detail on that. And people, my beloved Hazrat, Hazrat. Sahibu rat poison has Sheikh Asrar will be discussing his amazing methodology on proving the validity of Islam. Wah, wah, Qurban jaye, wah, wah. This is the amazing 21st century 2020 edition on how to demonstrate your faith is 100% intact. Not so much your liver, of course, after attempting this. Where our beloved drank rat poison to prove his Islam is supreme. Wah, wah, wah. So we'll be taking a look at that in the Mufti Masala segment. But let's take a look at what is it that is bothering mi gente. Look at this. Ray says, Salam Mufti, I'm watching 153rd episode tonight. You're doing it, man. You're doing it. That's what I'm talking about. Lucy, greetings. All right. ¿Cómo estás? How's it going? Portugal, people, Portugal. Mufti, can two people get married? Acha, over the phone. Here, naughty, over the phone. What kind of hanky-panky is going on over the phone, huh? Oh, it's a video call. Yeah, I don't understand the chuske people get by just, these are kind of like just, this is not substitute real thing, this one. But I suppose each to their own, huh? Cada uno es cada uno. Right, so Asrar is thinking he's Khalid bin Walid. Ay, Asrar, Hazrat, Asrar, we're going to come to him. Right, let's take a look at what my Facebook, mi gente on Facebook are saying. Let's see. Come on, peoples. Where are you? There you are. This is a bit slow sometimes. I'm bringing up the Facebook people. Ubaid says, how are your diet and gym regimen? Allah, going. Right, somebody, Shams, estoy cansado. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué, hermano? ¿Por qué? What have you been doing is the question. Mufti Saab is Mike. Acha Chaudhry, Walid Sahib, Imam Kazi. You're doing it, people. Right, so Mufti, talk about Mutah. I'm going to have to end up making like a demonstrating, a demo video on Mutah from A to Z. Badnaam hone ke liye, this is how to. Oh, that reminds me, I had this paper here. People, speaking on poetry, while some people are still tuning in, those of you that haven't heard of Ahmed Faraz, legend of recent, passed away not so long ago from Pakistan, an amazing Urdu poet he tantalizes such intellectual boundaries at times. Wait a minute, how can my phone not be on silent? Toba, toba. Yeah, toba, 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 toba. Toba, toba. You know the Indo-Pak way of touching the ears. Toba, 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 toba. Right, so this was a poem of his. Some parts of it reminded me, some themes, motifs from Ghalib's poetry. This line he begins with about being removed from Jannah. Yeah, Adam and obviously the whole story, the Garden of Eden. And where Ghalib has said, Nikalna khuld se Adam ka sunte aaye hain lekin बहुत बेआबरू होकर तेरे कूचे से हम निकले. He's saying that was a tragedy, coming out, getting kicked out of heaven. But the way I got kicked out of your house, he says this was another level of tragedy. But here, Ahmed Faraz says, Hum khuld, and khuld, they refer to Jannah. Hum khuld se nikal to gaye hain, par e khuda. इतने से वाक़ये का फसाना बहुत हुआ. He says it's true that we got chucked out of, we got removed from Jannah, the biblical version, eating an apple or whatever it was. But he says itne se waqiye ka, this incident, so much drama over this one little incident. अब हम हैं और सारे ज़माने की दुश्मनी, उससे ज़रा सा रब्त बढ़ाना बहुत हुआ. That now the only relation I have with this world is one of animosity. To increase it beyond that, like to have any other level of relationship with this world, is just too difficult now. अब क्यों ना जिंदगी पे मोहब्बत को वार दें. That should we not now sacrifice love over life, as in sacrifice love now over life. इस आशिकी में जान से जाना बहुत हुआ. Allah, Allah, Allah. Dukhi Atma, the man had suffered some tragedy, I tell you. He says that, now we've lost enough. It's, people say you die 1,000 deaths in love. He's saying we've lost that as it is. So it's about time now we sacrifice love for life. That क्या क्या ना हम खराब हुए हैं मगर ये दिल ए याद यार तेरा ठिकाना बहुत हुआ. लो फिर तेरे लबों पे उसी बेवफा का जिक्र, अहमद फराज तुझसे कहा ना बहुत हुआ. Allah, Allah, Allah. I do. Poetry has, I don't know, it's magic. In the Hadith, وَإِنَّ مِنَ الْبَيَانِ لَسِحْرًا, that from some of speech is magic. And to me, that's kind of poetry. That's what it means. So, what else is going on? Mufti Fawz Mutabi' is saying, hey, Mufti, is hijra obligatory upon a Muslim to a Muslim country, and why do some ulama say it is? You've got to be crazy to do hijra. Hijra means migration. Where on earth would a person migrate? And why would you want to migrate? Let's be honest. These countries are the best countries in the world. Like, let's just be honest about it. No, why blag? Would you? There may be some difference between them. Some may be better slightly in some legal perspectives, rights. But I would say Europe, by and large, especially Western Europe, is really the kind of, it is, I'm not, it's by no means perfect, but it is definitely in the at the peak of the human hierarchy in human civilization and the development of civil society. You can't really, even America really isn't, because America, there's some parts of America that are incredibly advanced and civil, and like there's so many facilities and the whole thing, and some parts of it which resemble the third world. And so Western Europe, by and large, with its laws, with its human rights, with its and it's this doesn't mean that it's perfection. It's definitely not, and there's plenty of room for improvement. That said, it's, why would you want to leave this and go to somewhere like Afghanistan? Well, if that's the case, then good luck, mate. Because that's what Darwin would call natural selection. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the questions. What are me Facebook gente saying? Somebody's asking about Ajwa dates. Doesn't, since Sirajul Haq is saying since placebo effect can heal too, so doesn't dua, Ajwa dates and honey and things like this could help heal with medication, of course. You see, this thing on Ajwa dates, I actually brought this up because in the past I've been asked on Ajwa dates. So there is a hadith which is in it's in Sahi Muslim and other books and things like this, that the Prophet said, whosoever ate man tasabba, in some, whosoever ate in the morning, or man akala sab'a tamarat, what is it, or actually, let's go through the actual, this narration that is in Sahih Muslim. This one is Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, those of you who can see this, this is Sahih Muslim, that he says, Man akala sab'a tamaratin mimma bayna labatayha حين يصبح لم يضره سم حتى يمسي, that whosoever eats 7 of these dates that are between these valleys, when he wakes, like as in the morning, even poison will not harm him and throughout that day, okay, until evening. Now, I've mentioned that in the past that, look, these things, this is not a literal interpretation. This is just hyperbole. It isn't kind of the dates in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean, they did have smaller dates, but they had the huge kind of, their dates were huge as well. They weren't just these kind of regular dates we get now that you can still sometimes find in the Arabian Peninsula, and that very large dates. And this was their staple diet. And a certain quality of them was the hallmark of nutrition and kind of good health. Just as people might say today, you've got bread in common households here within, throughout the West, and people might say, well, whole grain, whosoever eats whole grain bread. So you have this kind of very healthy option from amongst it. And the Prophet ﷺ is emphasizing that this is so wonderful that it's, even poison won't harm you. It wasn't a literal expression. It was just saying that, this is so amazing, if you've had this, like, it's like a person says, if you take this supplement, you can bend steel. It doesn't really mean that it is like that. So that's this is hyperbole in speech. Now, there are other hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that darun la tamra fihi, that darun la tamra fiha, or baytun la tamra fihi, jia'un ahlu, that this is that a house in which there are no dates, its occupants will always remain hungry. Now, that that's not true. It's not to be taken literally. The Prophet was not speaking from a position of prophethood when he said that. He was speaking as a person living within that Arabian context. So you have to remember that scholars, this is why I say the Maliki madhab, the school of Medina, is so awesome. That the scholars really were, stemming right from Imam Malik, the Don of Medina, the voice of reason. They've really kind of held on to that. So you see people like Abul Abbas al-Qarafi. Now, Qarafi is a great Maliki scholar around 800. He highlights that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, when we read about him, he is in 3 different states of mind. Okay, he has a state of mind which is the Prophet. He is the Prophet, and he's speaking as the kind of head of state of Medina. Okay, and the Muslims by extension. So, as what is the Rutbatun Nubuwa? He's coming from that angle. Then there is another state of mind where he's speaking as a judge, where he's judging between 2 people. This is not something necessarily generic. It's not for other people. It's not a fatwa. It's a qada. This is what the scholars call a distinction between bain al-qada'i wal-futya. Between a fatwa and a judgment is that a fatwa is am, it's for anybody, and a judgment is specifically for the people at hand that are being kind of judged. It's not for anybody because the specifics may vary. So, and then thirdly, the Prophet as a man, as a resident of Medina. And sometimes we don't know what that hadith, it's stemming from which state of mind. We have to judge that by the context. So and even the Sahaba sometimes. So you have the example when the Prophet is telling them what to do at the Battle of Badr, and let's set up camp here. And then somebody says to the Prophet, "Is that on wahi? Is that revelation, or is this your opinion?" And the Prophet says, "La bal huwa ra'yi." It's my opinion. And then the person says, in that case, I would like to suggest that we set up over there because it's closer to the well. And the Prophet says, very good idea. Let's do that. You see. So, and then there's the example of Barira, who divorces her husband. She leaves her husband Maghith, and he's obsessed with her. And that's in Bukhari as well. And he's following her around the streets of Medina. He's pursuing her. And the companions, and on one occasion, he was obsessed with her, begging her to take him back. This also goes to show that kind of that dominance hierarchy, the way sometimes it's presented, that it was a patriarchal society, but the way they present it as women were oppressed, it kind of contradicts that whole narrative. So we've got here that Barira was going through the streets of Medina, and Maghith is he's pursuing her, and he's saying, please, please, and and the Prophet sees that, and the companions are looking, and the Prophet says, isn't it strange, the more he obsesses in love over her, the more she resents him. And this is a psychological phenomenon that the Prophet is highlighting here. Now later Maghith asks him, please, if you have a word with her, and the Prophet goes and asks her. He says, look, why don't you marry Maghith again? He really loves you. So she says to the Prophet, that is this, amrullah, is this like a command, a divine commandment? Is this religion? Are you speaking from revelation? And the Prophet says, la, I'm just saying this as a normal resident of Medina. I'm just saying this. And then she says, no, in that case, never. And you see, so this is an interesting phenomenon. So when the Prophet is saying these things, like, oh, who ate this, whosoever had 7 dates, this is not some kind of cure from magic or some kind of cure from poison. That would be absurd. This is simply a great kind of just a praise of that nutrition. And to prove this as well, here, this is a commentary on Sahih Muslim. This is a double commentary. this is a tag team effort, right? So you've got the great Maliki scholar, who is who's Imam Mazari, and then you've got Qadi Iyad doing a commentary on his commentary. So and then there's so Mazari's is called Al-Mu'lim, and then Qadi Iyad is called Ikmal Al-Mu'lim, and then there's actually another Maliki who comes several centuries later called Ubbi, who does Ikmal Al-Mu'lim. But anyway, we digress. So here, look at this hadith that I just read out to you. Now look at what Imam Mazari, one of the greatest scholars of this ummah, he's around the 5th century of Islam. So we're talking over 900 years ago. He says, قال الإمام, and within the Maliki madhab, he's known as Al-Imam. Obviously, Imam Malik is known as Al-Imam, but if they just use Al-Imam referring to a scholar, they're often referring to Mazari. قال هذا مما لا يعقل معناه. He said this hadith, this is what is irrational and unintelligible. He says في طريقة علم الطب, from what we know of current day medicine, and that's in his time, let alone our time. And he says ولو صح أن يخرج لمنفعة التمر في السم وجه من جهة الطب لم يقدر على وجه الاقتصار منه على هذا العدد السبع. He says even if there was some cure that we came to understand from dates that was like an antidote to some poison, the 7, whosoever ate 7, makes no sense. And this is one of the greatest scholars. And then he goes on to say, he says, look, إذ لم يثبت عندي استمرار وقوع الشفاء بذلك في زمننا. He says, and then he says, maybe somebody may claim to have been cured by it, but غالبا, by and large, we don't find that today in contemporary medical practices, he's saying. And this is 900 years ago. So now, and what does Qadi Iyad say? He says maybe that was a particular date that had some kind of antidote to some poison in Medina. But he says, look, كما وجد الشفاء لبعض الأدواء في بعض الأدوية التي تكون في بعض البلاد دون ذلك الجنس في غير. And he mentions like sometimes you find that in some countries they have the kind of foods they have vary in their nutrients and maybe a particular thing it can cure. However, he goes on to say, look, most of the things, this doesn't really make sense. So we're going to just leave it as maybe that was just something the Prophet knew about a particular date in Medina referring to their context. But in this day and age, he says no. Not from a perspective of tib. And he says, as to the number 7, وَأَمَّا تَخْصِيصُ هَذَا الْعَدَدْ فَأَمْرٌ جَاءَ في الشرع في هذا الباب كثير كقوله سبوا على 7 قرب. And he says, وَكَانَ هَذَا الْعَدَدْ مُبَالَغَةً. This number is just exaggeration, like when you're trying to say loads. Like in English, people might say, we use certain numbers, like we'll say, you know what, just give me 2 minutes. Now 2 is often used. People say that. They wouldn't just say like, give me 4 minutes. Now that's very precise. Whereas if you said to somebody, you know what, just hang on 2 minutes, that's understood by that just a little while. Now he's saying the word 7 in Arabic, like sab'a sanabil and sab'ina marra, and these things, 70 and 700, is just used as for exaggeration, like to kind of mean loads, that's all. So this is what I'm showing you guys here. This is Maliki scholarship, showing exactly a very similar line of thinking. You know, some of these people, our beloved Hazrat, they say that, oh, you know, Mufti Abu Layth, when he says things, he has no methodology. He's not in line with the scholars of Medina. I give you the scholars of the school of Medina. So sit yourself back down. Siéntete. You know, the thing is, it's just that you don't actually know how this madhab and this school works. Now, this is a good example in Sahih Muslim. There's a hadith just before that where the Prophet prohibited that if you were eating dates with somebody, to pick up and eat 2 together, to get 2 dates and eat them together. And it says it's called al-iqran, right? To combine two. Now the Prophet says that لا تقارنوا فإن رسول الله نهى عن الإقران إلا يستأذن الرجل أخاه, unless you take permission from the host. Now this is a Sahih hadith, okay? It's in Sahih Muslim and it's transmitted by Ibn Umar. Now what does Qadi Iyad transmit later on? He transmits in that, and he's quoting from Khattabi, هذا كان في زمنهم. He says this was in the time of the Prophet only. He says لما كانوا عليه من الضيق والمواساة, because they didn't have much food. And he says فأما اليوم مع اتساء الحال, as to today, when there's abundance in food, and that's in their time, like Qadi Iyad and Khattabi, who are about 400, 500 Hijri, he says, فَلَا يَحْتَاجُونَ إِلَى الْإِسْتِعْمَارِ. So he says that as to today, they do not need to kind of seek permission to kind of do this. They don't need to ask the host, because today it's understood. What I'm trying to show you there is that these scholars saw these hadith and the teachings of the Prophet exactly how I tell you, that it's based on reason. It's just over time, a kind of dogmatism seems to have taken over, and there seems to be this mob mentality. Right, so let's move on, people. All right, your questions, you can send your... Oh, damn, what have I done here? That's better. You can send your questions to Facebook or YouTube. You can send, if you want to really be supportive, you can send some super chats as well. Why not? Why not? So, right. Let's take some of your questions. Now, people do say, yeah, oh, yeah, I brought some tea up and I forgot about it. Kya yaar? Toba, toba. You see, this is... People are going to say, God's making me forget as a punishment. Somebody, Abdul Mannan, has asked, if Mufti, Islam does have an objective, why was the Prophet sent? Was it just to get more people to worship Allah? And what do we do in relation to this? That's a very awesome question. Adam Mir has asked, bro, do you shape your eyebrows? Wow, the concerns. I don't. I'm surprised they appear that way, but I suppose it's هذا من فضل ربي. It's the Lord and His blessings. He showers them on whosoever He wills. That, and I suppose a bit of DNA and genes. Since my mum and dad weren't related to each other. Not that there's necessarily anything against incest. Oh, sorry, I mean cousin marriages. Thank God. I mean, nobody in my immediate family did things like that, cousin marriages, and I'm so glad. I just think sometimes that these things must be just so incredibly awkward. It's like sometimes you must be looking at the other partner and thinking, wow, I mean, I can literally see my granddad in you. I mean, I can literally see my granddad and grandmom because they're also your granddad and grandma. Yeah, ये हो क्या रहा है? बहन जी, oh, sorry. पत्नी जी. I'm just joking. Obviously, those of you that are married to your sisters and cousins, no offense. Just joking. It's okay. Yeah, what's a bit of intimacy between cousins, huh? It's let's take a look. What is going on, man? What is bothering me, gente? Can one get married without a wali? I do believe that you can get married without a wali, and I've got a whole video detailed on that where I show the hadith and how the hadith are not sahih. Alright, somebody said, didn't your prophet get married to his cousin? No, not like that. Right, okay, so there's a difference between like that you're related somehow, but everybody is so different by and large. That, I suppose, is slightly different to actual, within the Pakistani community, sometimes they just keep it all within, like everybody's just cousins. So I suppose maybe things are different if everybody's always different. The mother's different, father's different, all these people are always different, and then one person through the mother, she's related like this, but everybody else, her father's different. And I think you're talking about Zainab bint Jahsh, who through her mother was related to the Prophet but through the father and the entire tribe and everything was different. So in that sense, I mean, that's not what I meant when I was saying that. But okay, let's take a look. Mufti, did you see Asrar Rashid's lecture on Ghazwatul Hind? Would the Prophet really have talked about India in his lifetime? Kapil ji, I've got a video on this. This Ghazwatul Hind is fabricated. I'm telling you, wallahi, this is made up. There was never a Ghazwatul Hind. The Prophet would never have. It makes no sense that the Prophet in his lifetime, who is in Hijaz and just about gets the allegiance of the Arabian Peninsula, the next most important thing to him were the Arabs of the Middle East, the Nabatean, kind of post-Nabatean Arabs, where you've got who were now living under the Byzantines and the others who were living under the Persian Sassanid Empire. They were a huge, they outnumbered the Arabs of the Arabian Peninsula by and large. So this is why, by the way, when Islam spread to the Middle East, you're probably wondering, some of you who've actually thought about this may be wondering, how come in early Islam there's questions like, can you read Salah in Farsiya? Because people spoke Farsi, because a lot of those Arabs sometimes, and some of the converts spoke Farsi. But why is there not the question about Greek? Because surely they spoke, there was the Byzantines, that in the time of Umar, it collapses. So why, and there were millions of people there. So why were there never these questions about Greek? And that's because all those Greek residents, most of them were Arabs genetically. So they actually spoke Arabic with a slight variant, but they could understand, General Arabic. So this is why the Quran, when it came to them, they could understand it. So, so this was the primary concern. Where you have the Prophet speaking of other countries like China, like seek knowledge, وَأُطْلُبُ الْعِلْمَ وَلَوْ بِالسِّينِ. This hadith is weak and made up. That hadith may have a nice meaning to it. But this thing of Ghazwatul Hind, I'm telling you, this Ghazwatul Hind was only Umayyad propaganda. At the time, it's Umayyad and Abbasid. It depends which kind of hadith you're looking at. But it's during that era when hadith are not documented. And Hajjaj ibn Yusuf sends Muhammad bin Qasim to Sindh. Now, the story they tell people is that one lady got attacked. And that's a nice story. I mean, if it's true, alhamdulillah, but I really doubt it that that's true. Honestly, I doubt it. I sincerely doubt it. Because, people forget that they were just as human as you and me. They honestly didn't care about these things like this. Like, I think we give them way too much credit. Like, we think they were like these kind of super devout, mashallah, mashallah. Acha, we've got some time spare. Chalo Quran ki tilawat karte. You guys must be drunk if that's what you think they were like. Hajjaj ibn Yusuf is the guy who bombed, he catapulted and destroyed the Kaaba. Nobody was prepared to attack Abdullah ibn Zubayr because he had his capital was Mecca, but he was seeking kind of like refuge within the Kaaba. He was inside. So the armies of Marwan and so on, the Umayyad armies, when they would go there, they refused because they said, look, we're not going to, how can we, obviously he's inside, the haram is inside Mecca. Now, what do you want us to do? You want us to throw stones, not stones, catapults into Mecca, into the Kaaba. So they kind of backed off and they said that this is going to be like bad luck and we're going to get sins and we don't want to do this. Who rose to it? Who said, I will do it? Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. He said, Kaaba. What's that? He went there. He bombed the Kaaba, catapulted the Kaaba with balls of fire. They burnt the Kaaba. A huge part of it was burnt. He didn't care. He had Abdullah ibn Zubayr, who was a companion. He had him hung up, stripped naked, had his body attached there for 3 days. The Asma, who's, the daughter of Abu Bakr, he was about to slap her up. Do you really think this guy, some Indian lady from traveling in a boat, said, "Oh, I've been robbed. Ya salam, where are the Muslims?" And Hajjaj got up and thought, "Wah, I'm going to dispatch an army." Yeah, if that's what you think, I'd say, if you can pass me some of what you're drinking, it definitely seems more fun than this tea. Because come on, man, I wish it's true. I would like that story to be true, that Hajjaj did do that, but it's in all honesty, it's very unlikely. The truth is that there was a lot of politics. Some people say that some of the Shia kind of followers had migrated towards India, and as they had towards Khorasan. So you have to remember the Abbasids, when they did overturn the Umayyads, they came from Khorasan, modern day Afghanistan, and they managed to build a major stronghold there. Abu Muslim and all these people. Now, you've got there's reports that some of the imams of the Shia, that kind of who, remember, the Hashimeens are the opposition to the Umayyads, that some of them escaped to India. Now, there was a fear that they may build a kind of support mechanism and thereby later become a threat. Some people have said maybe this is why Hajjaj dispatched an army, that, and then there's other reasons, obviously, maybe the riches of India, why not, and things like this. But it's all politics, man. Even later on, Muhammad bin Qasim, who killed him? Hajjaj. On what pretext? Oh, he was sleeping with the queen, Rani, Maharani Sahiba. Malika Hindustan. So apparently, I think her name was Sita ji. Sita ji, her beauty was bahut hi sundar thi. So Muhammad bin Qasim, no control, according to this narration. So when he comes back and Hajjaj kills him, come on, really, Hajjaj kills him over sleeping with this lady? Come on, do you think they weren't sleeping with so many people anyway, with slave girls? What difference does it make if he slept with what difference does it make to Hajjaj, who's all the way thousands of miles away in Baghdad? Come on, let's be real. Like that, it always comes down to things like money and power. It doesn't come down, by the way, that captive lady, you slept with her. Like, they were doing this all the time. I mean, you gotta, so I just say, if we're being realists, these things are difficult, and it's impossible that, Hajjaj, in my perception, but I do still like to believe that story, that he did it out of kind of to help a damsel in distress. यहाँ पर वैसे तो बड़ा सख्त लोंडा है, पर यहाँ पर पिघल जाता है. It's like, oh, a damsel in distress. Right, so what is going on? Salam, Abu Layth, Mahmoud, ahlan wa sahlan. Mufti, how is Farid Gangu Teli? I haven't heard of Gangu Teli Sahib in a good while. I've got no idea what he's up to. Somebody said the riches of India. Yeah, of course, women of India. Of course, the beauty of India is known. But I'll be honest with you. I'm sure the beauty of Arabia and wherever they were was equally, if not had its own. But I don't. I think it's more. Hola, Mufti. Espero que estás bien. Shukran, shukran. Puedes explicar el verso en el kufr. What verse? إن أنكر الأصوات لصوت الحمير. Yeah, I mean this. What is it? Muchas gracias. I just missed the name of the person asking. Sam. Muchas gracias, hermano. Muchas gracias. Right, for the question. I mean, what this verse? وإن أنكر الأصوات لصوت الحمير. The kind of braying or the sound of the donkey that it makes is a very distasteful sound to humans by and large, and that's, I don't know what that's not necessarily an issue because that is true. Right, yep, so that is true. Somebody said Hajjaj didn't kill Muhammad bin Qasim. I believe he was behind his death. He's the one who had him brought back. Hajjaj did, and he is the one, I believe, that had him. I mean, whether Suleiman killed him or who did the actual execution, but I believe, from what I've read, that Hajjaj played a big role in having him killed. Whether he had died before him actually getting killed or not, may be the case, may not, but I mean, that's irrelevant. But he played the role. I mean, he was kind of behind it from what I've kind of come across. Right. Right, somebody saying, would I? Yes, I'm going to be addressing the Asrar thing towards the end in the Masala segment, Mufti Masala. So, what is going on, people? Mufti, can you comment on the background of the Prophet's marriage to Rehan? That's we'll do that another day. I'll go through the whole background. I'll bring it up. I'll go into some other details. Some people are saying Hajjaj was his uncle. And what? They used to have their own children killed, their own parents killed. I think, it didn't mean what it means today. Uncle is a distant relationship. People had their own, ये जो खून के रिश्ते हैं ना, ये खून बहा कर ही खत्म होते हैं. ये मैं नहीं कहता हूँ, ये इतिहास कहता है, इतिहास. That's a quote from what is it, Irfan Khan, one of his movies. Right, so why were the Umayyads against Ahlul Bait? It's pure politics about who. It's a long outstanding disagreement. Maybe someday I will do a course on it. Why not, huh? The Umayyads. Don't get me wrong, I don't believe they were kafirs and things like this. I just believe they were human, all too human, really. Sid, MashaAllah, may Allah, look at it, Sid, yaar, Allah khush rakhe. May Allah keep you smiling. Shukran jazilan for your kind words. Islam, stay blessed. Islam needs more honest Muslims like yourself, right? I'm deeply touched and much grateful. Shukran. Right, so Mufti Saab, what's your view on Sheikh Asrar? Yep, I'm going to be discussing that. A lot of people want to know about the poison. Zebaji, what's does Allah Khuda mean the one as significant other? Is the word ibadah used over 85 times in the Quran, used for spiritual sexual worship? ये कहाँ ये चलते चलते कहाँ चल दिए? Sexual worship. I'm now intrigued. Mufti Kapil, I'm going to come to your question, Zebaji. Mufti, I thoroughly enjoyed your Noah's Age video. Do you have your own theories on which specific ancient civilizations each prophet was sent to? Kapil, I mean, I think that's not so enigmatic. Prophets were sent to their regions, to their people by and large. Like so, Shu'aib, most likely the biblical Jethro was in Midian, Moses to the Israelites. A lot of the prophets were just to the Israelites, David, Solomon, these. So Jesus to the Jews. I don't think that's so much of an enigma or so puzzling. I think the prophets were just sent to their people. There was a question asked earlier on about what was the purpose of the prophet coming and calling people to God, and I feel that, you see, the whole message of the prophet was to reconnect creation with the Creator, or to kind of, you see, human beings, we really struggle with true monotheism, like, because we can understand that there is one God, we can get that, but then we think, like, really, if there is one God, then how can this be happening? And what, or maybe that God isn't really interested in me. So to bridge the impersonal God with the personal God, this is really a difficult task, honestly, and to kind of break free the shackles of superstition. I tell you, people, superstition destroys human beings. As not as an absolute kid, but as a young person, as a kid, I suppose, but probably when I was about 13, 14, like that. I remember there was a time I became really superstitious, and honestly, when I think back now, it was kind of crippling. It's amazing now when I think back. I mean, I was a kid, and it began with, what happened is, I can't remember, something happened, and there was like, it said like a good omen, like something good is going to happen. Something good happened that day. And then I remember, oh, that's funny, didn't it say it in this thing? And then the next time it said it again, and oh, and wow, something good happened. And I thought, this affirmation, this confirmation bias began to happen. And I was young. So, and then this one time, something bad happened, and it said, like, I don't know, like, I can't remember now whether it was to do with the number of birds you see, or was it to do with, I can't remember what kind of omen, but there was some kind of omen, or did I read it somewhere or something? I can't remember, but I remember that something kind of, this streak of, like, let's say something bad happening began. And I started to get really superstitious, and I started to think that, oh, so there's good luck, bad luck, and I've got to kind of beware. And I was just like maybe 12, 13, maybe going into 14, that kind of age. So, and I remember at one point it kind of really bothering me. And as a young person, of course, but there's grown-ups like this, and I'm telling you, it's crippling. And I'm so, one of the greatest things Islam did for me, when I started to pray and practice probably when I was around maybe about 16, 17, something like that, was to really rid me of all superstitions. And I found that so, empowering. And so, because, even though it was such a long time ago, but because I've had some experience of that, I can relate to it. Like a black cat, or the number 13, or whatever it is. But somebody said, John Lewis said, Mufti, you're waffling, bro. Wow, is that the brand, John Lewis, on my show? Wow. Right, let's take some. Do you do Raf al Yadain? I personally do Raf al Yadain. Sometimes I don't, but I mean, there have been times that I've left it out, but I personally kind of like it. It's before you kind of go into ruku and get up from ruku and things like that. is Sid on YouTube? Sid, where is Sid actually? I don't know. I haven't. Sid's usually on Facebook. Mufti Saab, does Sab'a Ahruf still exist and how is it different? I'm going to go through that on one occasion in detail, but very briefly, I think no, there's a huge misunderstanding around that. Okay. There's a question coming in. I'll just take this, but just briefly, I feel that all of whatever reading fit in with the Uthmanic script was in essence permissible, but some of it kind of became more widespread and accepted, so we should go with that. That's the way I see it. All of this is really just one way of kind of reading. It's not sab'at ahruf, and that hadith isn't even really sound. But I've actually got it here, but I just don't, I've got other things to go through today. I have got it out. There's an amazing discussion between some Maliki scholars, some from North Africa and in Spain, where they end up in this huge argument, and some people are calling other people kafir over this, and Ibn al-Lub's at the head of it. But I want to discuss that on one of my, maybe next week I'll go through it in much detail, okay? Right, Zeba had asked a question about worship and sexual worship. You see, that's interesting. I'm not... Within Islam, is there this notion of sexual worship? I think in some ways you can kind of see it, but it's not the way some religions have really kind of emphasized. Like Hinduism, I think traditionally really kind of venerated sex and intimacy as... And I think in a way that was quite amazing what they did. You can see some glimpses of that in the Islamic legacy. So things like when the Prophet said, وَفِي بُضْعِ أَحَدِكُمْ صَدَقَةً and so on, this is like, it's a virtuous act and stuff like this. But I think the Arabs generally saw sexual intimacy as just very natural. Like to them, it wasn't the way people see it today. And it wasn't necessarily venerated. It wasn't a bad thing at all. They had no taboo around it at all. In fact, by their standards, we would consider their standards rude. We, as especially Indo-Pak Muslims, would consider how they speak about it in the Hadith as unacceptable. We would actually treat it as immodest speak, because our culture is very sensitive now, which is ironic because India kind of came up with the whole Kama Sutra, and so I don't know why India now has this, and by India I mean Pakistan as well, Hindustan by and large has this whole sensitive culture towards, and that's really inherited by the British Victorian era, and then the British moved on, but we kept it. And what we did is we stuck a label of Islam on it. So it's amazing. But so that's because in the Hadith you have things like the Prophet speaking about sex in such open ways that we would be like, even when we read it, we're like, because there's stories like some of the companions will come in and they'll say, they'll ask something about sex, and the Prophet will just say, oh yeah, we were just having sex, and when we did this, it was like... But it's so casually said that people today would be like, huh? Like, especially Muslims today. I don't know about maybe other people, but they'd be really kind of like, whoa, that's a bit, a bit too forward. And like the other hadith, which I've quoted before, when the Prophet goes to call on a companion and he doesn't open the door, and then the Prophet, he kind of walks off, and the guy comes running and he's tying his kind of sarong, his izar, and the Prophet says, oh, sorry, did we disturb you? He says, yeah, he says, I was just having sex. Can you imagine that today happening? Would be like, huh? Can you imagine the Maulana Sahib coming out? He goes, bas wo lage hue the abhi. You want to see how I was at it? You want to know the exact, the formation, the structure? You want to know my usual routine during it? So this is how, and then in that hadith, the Prophet's like, oh, I'm sorry, did we interrupt you? Did you finish? And he's like, no, actually, I didn't finish. And this is so interesting right? So from how they perceived Islam. It's amazing, and how they saw it as so natural. But back to the question, I don't think it's really seen as a kind of worship thing, although it could be. But for some reason, as the Muslim institutionalized version of Islam kind of developed, people didn't really take it down that road, and they just became more and more sensitive. Right, Ghalib Noor has asked, I want to know if right, sorry. Inaya's asked a question as well. Let me just, before I. Where did it go? Ghalib Noor, if hellfire is eternal for non Muslims, and is hellfire being eternal fitting for Allah's mercy? Ghalib, I've got a more detailed video on the afterlife and imagery in the Quran and the etymology of things like the hellfire. I've got a few videos on how the kind of concept of the hellfire evolves right from the Greek idea, mythology of Hades, coming right, initially beginning with Mount Olympus and the whole things and these figureheads. Hades is a figurehead, then coming to represent the underworld, that creeping into kind of Christian heritage, where Hades is now the afterlife, the dark underworld, and Jesus referring to Hades when he says to the people of Capernaum, or where he says to Peter, you are my rock, upon you I will build my church, and Hades will not overcome you. Or where he's saying, or in the book of Revelations, where there's, behold, I saw a pale horse, the rider of which was death, and followed with it, and with it all of Hades followed. And Hades then becomes substituted with the word hell later on. And Jesus using the term hell as Gehinnom, the valley of Hinnom people. And then this is then further taken up by Islam and moved forward with its imagery. I've said that I don't believe that this imagery has to be literal, although many Muslims do feel it's literal. I feel that this imagery is more symbolic. Okay. It's not necessarily a literal kind of thing, but people can believe it. I mean, I'm not here to kind of control people's beliefs or tell them what they should or should not be believing. I'm just saying that, in my understanding, the imagery, even to do with God Himself in the Quran, is simply symbolic. Like Allahu Nuru Samawati wal Ard, this is God Himself, and it's symbolic. It's not, He's not the physical light, He's not the photons and that in the. So it's symbolism, and the imagery of Jannah is symbolic about, it seems to be really an oasis, a garden which is appealing to 7th century Arabs. Now, if Islam was revealed in, I don't know, in, let's say, Greenland or somewhere where, much colder kind of places, would have it been different? The description of the afterlife, I believe it would have. It would have reflected the needs of the people. So saying things like rivers of milk, for example, doesn't really mean much to people today. So this kind of imagery was because the primary recipients of the Quran, who were the make or break deal, were the companions. So it had it was revealed in accordance with their orientation of the world, and the rest of humanity just by extension. That's all. So that's but I've got some detailed videos. Do watch them, because I haven't really done justice here in explaining. Right, there was a question. Moving to the next question. There was Inaya Daneen, you're doing it. Inaya, you're doing it. A new convert just asked about the Quran ayah on those whom your right hand possesses. I've got a kind of detailed video on this, because I won't be able to do that justice right now but where I go through, where I explain what the collective consciousness is and the social consciousness and how that has changed with time. But I do explain in it that they were captives. There were these things. Slavery did exist, although Islam doesn't encourage slavery, and it does encourage freeing slaves, but it does acknowledge it. I won't, there's no point trying to deny that. It did acknowledge it because it was part and parcel of human society when Islam was revealed. So keeping that in mind, that's what I would say. Yes. So let me just boost this up slightly. Hello. Just checking the. I felt that the volume was slightly. Let me just boost it up a bit. Right. So so I won't be able to really do that much justice just here and now. So what I'm going to say is that I've got a clip where I go through and I actually show you, like there's a certain experiment in showing how consciousness becomes altered and things like this. And I think I do much more justice there in that clip because I go into much detail, break it all down. And why sex was there, I'm not denying that. But their perception of sex was slightly different to how we perceive sex today. It's still sex. I'm not trying to kind of beat around the bush, but I'm just saying that it is different still, and how and what does that mean? And I go through a lot of kind of examples and analogies. So do check that out, please. It's Baqilani, not Baqiyani. Watch your mouth. What is going on? Right, so Zeba, your question doesn't make too much sense. Okay, so, but I mean, each and all to their own questions. Anybody can ask. What is, somebody said, I want rivers of Ruh Afza, Khadim Hussein. And such you will be granted. Right, let's go on, people. Let's take a look, man. What's going down? Can you elaborate on the minority of today against this dogma, mob, and morality Islam? I'm not sure I understand the question. Khadim Hussein is saying, do Mulvis get kinky? Do Mulvis get kinky? I don't think you've quite studied with lived the dervish lifestyle. You know, when the Mulvi Saab comes with his wudu slippers. Toba. These madrasas and what kind of what debauchery and dhulm goes on over there. So, what is going on, mi gente? What is going on? Right, sharam aa gaya at the thought. Right, so you are a kafir, and Akil Abid agrees. Oh, JJ, you're a kafir. Who's JJ? I don't know. Have you seen the Netflix series Who Killed Malcolm X? No, I actually did begin it though. I've watched, I think, just one episode, 1.5. Did Imam Bukhari used to pray 2 rak'ah? What is it? Pray before traveling to Medina and did research. I think, this thing of Imam Bukhari used to pray 2 rak'ah before each hadith he put in his book. This is what I call nice speak, nice speak. And this one nice, this one. I mean, it's very unlikely. I think maybe before he began writing each day, he prayed 2 rak'ah. That's more believable. But every hadith he got up and wrote 2 rak'ah, and then he's got like about 8,000 hadith in his book. This would have taken him forever if he was doing that. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe. But I don't think so. I think there's a lot of exaggeration that maybe they do it with good intention. Molvis are some of the kinkiest people on the planet. Tadki Molvi. Tadak. This is what we call the tadak. This is the terminology, the nomenclature, rather. Tadak is full on. It's on nitro boost with the Molvis. Right, so the difference of his minority view and the mob mentality Islam. Why is there a distinction between a hurra and an amma in clothing. I don't believe there was. I think that the slave girl, so to speak, that they're saying, I think that a lot of these things are post occurrence kind of institutionalizations. So people have put them in the books, but I don't think really the world was like that. It is true that in Arabian society, early Islam, covering the face, one was done out of whatever, but two was also sometimes a status symbol, that they had that culture. And maybe in that case, some women who felt that they were of a higher status kind of covered their face as part of their culture. But it's not really, and yes, obviously slaves wouldn't be walking around kind of like dressed, or like they would obviously unfortunately be slaves, so you can imagine their clothing wouldn't be of that standard and maybe kind of scantily dressed and whatever. But I don't think it's quite the way people pretend, like they act like all these women walked around bare-breasted in Medina and all this kind of stuff. I really doubt that. After all, men are men. I really doubt that it bothered them about the social status. They're like, oh yeah, she's sorry, what social status is she? Oh, that's okay then. As many of the Salaf used to say about about the other fella, the fella down south, Babu Bhai. They used to say, inna sahibi a'ma wa asam. They used to say, my companion. They're talking about he's blind and deaf. He doesn't listen to anyone. He doesn't see whatever he wants. He just does this. This one out of control. So I really doubt that. I think these things are all people making up stuff later on. Yeah, the covering the face status, I don't think it always persisted, but there was a culture that some people did do that for status. And you get that sometimes the Queen of Bhopal and certain other queens and of certain empires did used to do that as a status symbol as well. Did the Prophet read Salat to Ibrahim in the third person? No, he didn't like that. He didn't say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad like that. I think most likely the Prophet, once tashahhud is done, at-tahiyatu lillah, then they just said a dua and said salam. So this is things that we've kind of put into salah that we feel are still part of salah. Like they kind of like, because in that you say, assalamu alayka ya nabi, so you're kind of giving salam anyway, and this is an extension of that, and then you add a dua. Okay, Qasim, shukran, much love. What else is going on? What are some of the questions? Mufti Saab, have you heard of the famous peer known as chuff peer? Chuff. I have, and I think really the WHO, from the United Nations, are really trying to look for him right now with coronavirus. Peer Saab, zara chuff kar dijiyega. Chuff. And the coronavirus is like, ah. See, this is it, and this is where, how religion turns people in, like, it really just makes certain people dumb. In the name of, there's things that you would never be able to get away with. But you stamp religion on it, and it's amazing how people get away with it. Like this chuff. Like, can you just imagine this? Like, but in some ways, I feel, my theory is, in some ways, fair play. To chuff Saab. When you look at that chuff beard, you can see that nutty in him. You can see it though. He's got a bit of that kind of charisma and a bit of that. I feel in some ways fair play, because look, this world is the law. It is the jungle, and it's not the fault of people trying to con other people, because I think it's by the law of the jungle, there will always be people out there trying to con you. It's shame on you for being deceived. You see, it's not like I blame the people that actually get deceived by, as opposed to the deceiver. Because I think, look, because if Chuff Saab didn't con them, somebody else would con them. You know, a fool and his gold are soon, they soon part ways. It's not, you can't really. It's like, I think people who are just stupid, they deserve to be kind of like conned, because somebody's got to do it. So you think, look, somebody's going to con them anyway. Chalo, I might as well con them. Survival of the fittest, I guess. That's what it is. So, Qasim, Allahu Akbar, Hayyakum Allah. Look at that, Qasim D, people, Qasim D. Right, Mufti, I've been following you for a while. Your Mart has been bullying a girl on chat. What? He swore at her dad, who has passed away last week, and for no reason, putting her on mute constantly for no reason. Please sort out your moderator. Right, I don't know who that is. That's that, but do send me a message, please. I have this, but about the moderator kind of just kind of muting people who are asking genuine questions. Can you please not do that? Okay, so bars aa jao, otherwise right, I'm going to have a word with the moderator. Do not, and under no circumstances can anybody really be bullying on my chat, or generally you shouldn't be doing it, but definitely not on my chat. It's utterly unacceptable on his, or whoever done that. I mean, the girl that's gone through whatever. Inshallah, yassar Allah, I apologize you've had to suffer this, but I will look into it. I mean, well said. We are all given aql as a gift to use. Mufti, why not discard hadith totally? I don't believe in discarding hadith totally. I've got several. If you go to my YouTube thing, I've got this a set of videos which address things like should we reject hadith altogether, Bukhari gate, what do we think of Bukhari, how should we approach. Do check those out, people, because I do answer this there on why I don't. Mufti, can you draw a principle to get money of out politics from Surah Baqarah, verse 1. What? Can you draw as a principle to get money of out politics from Surah Baqarah? Mark, I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means. Maybe take money out of politics. Can you make money from politics? Is that the question? If that's the question, I suppose you can make money from politics. It's you can make money. I suppose politics is a mean as well. Zebaji, could you shed light on understanding of experience of Surah Najm? Had a dream that was exactly like the verses of Surah Najm. Surah Najm is an amazing surah in the Quran. It's it's kind of rhythmic nature. It's a Meccan surah, and it's not that long, and it touches upon, mainly it's trying to affirm to the people that this messenger brings to you a message, and how just think about it. Could he really be making this up? Do you really believe? Just look at the message, and then look at the things that you're making up. In hiya illa asma'un sammaytumuha antum wa aba'ukum. This is from Surah Najm, and you said that you saw Surah Najm in your dream. Sure, I mean that's good. I mean, seeing the Quran in your dream. I do think, I think, is it age? I don't. बुढ़ापे में आ गए यार. But I feel that, now I think more and more that maybe, like, I'm really intrigued by the realm of dreams, and I do feel that it has maybe some connect with the greater consciousness. And I feel that in the past, humans maybe were more fine-tuned to stuff like this, and in our current society we do brush them off. In psychology, up until today, the general kind of the activation theory and the other theories on explaining dreams don't really quite cut it. And I do, I know Freud said, in fact, Freud maybe in some ways, because he's at least saying it's the unconscious mind. I'm saying that what if it is that kind of consciousness, but also part of the collective consciousness? And I feel that's what the hadith in Bukhari is saying, that al-arwah junudun mujannada, that I say the ruh is consciousness, that this is connected as a social network of consciousnesses, if you like. Yeah, but what else is going on? Is it okay to charge to teach the Quran? Right, this is an issue of debate amongst the scholars traditionally. And the Hanafi scholars didn't agree with that, so they generally felt it was impermissible. Although the school of Medina, the Maliki ulama, felt that it is permissible to charge to teach things like fiqh, or to teach Quran, or to teach Hadith, or to teach Arabic, or whatever it is, that they felt, or to do adhan. In fact, there's a classical book written on this by an Andalusi scholar from Granada on the Imam, the Muazzin taking a salary and for doing the adhan, and the Imam and things like. And I think that there's no harm really, because if you don't value these things, the problem will be that you're not gonna get the creme de la creme that rise. Like it's like today. Because knowledge and scholarship is a redundant faculty, that once you become an imam, there's nothing to do. Once you become an alim, there's nothing to do. Like you can either teach in a local masjid where you get paid £100 a week, which is ridiculous. I'm not even sure if that's legal, but you probably get paid something like that. Or you could teach at some basic madrasa, but there's nothing to do. So people with talent are not drawn to this field. People with talent want to then become doctors and dentists and lawyers. And whereas if this field genuinely paid well, you would draw talent. Naturally, people follow the money. There's nothing wrong, I think. So if you want really talent, you have to pay well. That's unfortunately the thing. So I don't believe in this. And then I suppose if somebody's taking his time out to teach the Quran or do imama in a masjid, then we shouldn't expect them to do it for free. I do think that's a bit, taking the mick. But yeah. So, right, people. Shall we... Right. Right. I was just trying to... Right, so... Right, okay, people, I'll tell you what, let's take a quick... we are going to come to the rat poison thing. Let's take a look at this Fadaq issue. I want to explain that. It's... Right, so... Un momento, people. Right, so I've explained previously that, which was quite brief, but I've been asked to go over it. I have looked into this in much more detail now. Gone through, the entire hadith involved, a lot of the history. I also had the opportunity to go down to, within Birmingham, this just weekend gone, really, just Saturday, there was a kind of symposium held on this at a Shia institute, which was looking at the Fadaq issue from a Shia and Sunni perspective, and just highlighting the case at hand. Obviously, I mean, the institute was Shia, but it was kind of with regard to the Sunni perspective as well. And the institute was called Al-Mahdi Institute. It's in Selly Oak in Birmingham. I have to say, first of all, just as a side note, I was so mesmerized by the actual building and institute that they've got. Honestly, I totally loved it. I think it was part of Birmingham University or something before. It's like a university hall or a separate kind of a unit almost, which has all its en suites and everything, and very modern, amazing kind of landscape. Just I was wowed, mesmerized by it as a Islamic faculty. I mean, I've been in faculties like that before, when I'm going to things like psychology courses at universities and stuff like this, but I've never seen anything to do with Muslims like that. And it was incredibly organized, up to date, kind of technology. I was just wowed. One, with the building. Two, there's I think it's under the I think the principal sheikh there is Sheikh Arif, a very kind of balanced Shia scholar. It was the first time I met him, but somebody he's quite very controversial within the Shia circles. He's challenged a lot of controversial Shia points, and I think a lot of the Shia have actually boycotted him. Amazing, very hospitable person. I loved the way they welcomed me. There were many Sunnis there, by the way. Some great traditional Sunni scholars, like trained in back home, Pakistan, etc. People like Allama Khalid Mahmood Saab. Amazing, and I was overwhelmed with the amount of love he was showing me, because I was thinking, come on, I mean, because I really did not expect it from somebody so traditional. Looking at me, I mean, because I mean, just the way I look and things like this, and my views are sometimes very kind of challenging, but so hospitable he was. Allama Khalid Saab and Mufti Farooq Saab, both these are Sunni kind of scholars from Birmingham, old school, and they presented their things in Urdu. But it was an amazing opportunity, so I thought I'll just mention that there. I did really enjoy the visit there, and I think we need to collaborate so much more. Sunni, Shia, this whole thing, we need to really we really need to kind of go through this. Vera, you are busy, but if you get a bit of time, please do answer my question. Oh, yes, Sid, shukran, much love. I definitely will. I'm just trying to see what the question was. Right, I've got to. If you can just repost your question, please, and it doesn't need to be. It could just be a standard post. I will get to it. I'm just as soon as let me just go through Fadaq. I can't see the question. Right, so I can't see Mesut. I can't see his question. Can somebody post his question, please? Um, right, so I wanted to discuss. So we went through this whole thing a bit about Fadaq. So Fadaq is to do with, it's a piece of land. I'm going to bring it up. Let me just see here. So for people asking, this, as you can see, I've got it highlighted there, Fadaq, and in the center, in the kind of rectangle, is Medina. So you can see that there. Right, so that's Fadaq, and to the top left of it is Khaybar, and it was in the outskirts of Khaybar, Fadaq was, and it was kind of given to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as part of fate. Okay, now fate is that land which it's that land which the Prophet is given. It's that land which the Prophet receives through without warfare. So it's a kind of truce, but as part of the truce, people sometimes they would say things like, especially in old times, they would say things like, "Look, if you they would say things like, look, okay, we don't want war. Tell you what, we'll do this. Sometimes they might say, look, I'll tell you what, we'll all leave this region, we'll move to that region, you can have this. Or they might say something like, you know what, just take this particular thing and let's have a truce, let's do this, that, whatever. It was a kind of compromise that people would do. So during the Battle of Khaybar, there were a lot of surrounding territories, and some of them were taken as a truce. They weren't actually taken uh, with actual war. And there is the verse of the Quran we're looking at is in Surah Al-Hashr. So if we take a look at, it begins with verse 5, ما قطعتم. So أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. So Allah says, ما قطعتم من لينة أو تركتموها قائمة على أصولها فبإذن الله وليخزي الفاسقين. So Allah is speaking about them, this as you go into warfare and so on. وما أفاء الله على رسوله, and that which Allah gives as fate, and fate is this land or whatever comes as a truce. على رسوله منهم فما أوجفتم عليه من خيل ولا ركاب ولكن الله يسلط رسله على من يشاء. And you have not had to kind of wage your war with your horses or do things like this. Allah has allowed the messenger to kind of preponderate and subdue and control the situation here. And it mentions Wallahu ala kulli shayin qadir, ma afa Allahu ala rasulih. So what Allah gives as fate min ahlil qura falillahi walil rasul, then it is for Allah and His Rasul. Walidhil qurba, so walidhil qurba wal yatama wal masakin وابن السبيل كي لا يكون دولة بين الأغنياء منكم وما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب. Now this is from that verse 7 in Surah Al-Hashr. Now in this verse Allah mentions these 5 categories of who benefits from the faith. For Allah says lillahi wa rasul. So people generally count Allah and His Rasul as one. It says walidhil qurba wal yatama, so the relatives of the messenger, wal yatama, orphans, and Allah mentions wabna sabil, and people who are travelers that kind of need this and stuff. So the issue is here we're dealing with this land. And this particular land that we're looking at is called Fadaq, that I've shown in the map. Now, what's happened is during the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I want to give you a synopsis in more detail. That during the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had this land, and it was very fertile. They say that Fadaq was incredibly fertile, so it had a lot of produce. It produced things like whether it was barley or dates and things like this. Now, the Prophet would use it, and in some riwayat he would use it for travelers that were coming. He would kind of have that allotted, and he would have a portion from it. Some riwayat say he would split it in 2 or sometimes in 3 and use a portion for this and a portion for that. He would set a certain amount aside as a reserve for crises, like sometimes there was low food availability, there were things like this. There may have been armies going out. So this is how they were organized. Now the issue at hand was, there's 2 key issues. After the Prophet's lifetime, could this be inherited by his offspring, who in this case is Fatima radiallahu anha? Now, what we know as a fact is that Fatima radiallahu anha approaches Abu Bakr to ask for inheritance, but she doesn't receive it. She asks for this. Now, she asks for the sadaqat, as in the land which is around Medina, which was Bani Nadir land. She asks for Khaybar, and she asks for Fadaq. She asks for not just Fadaq, there's a large claim that is made, or a claim for a large quantity is made. Better to word it better. Now, Abu Bakr radiallahu anh responds by saying, the Prophet said, La nurath, we as prophets do not bequeath. We do not leave things in inheritance. Ma tarakna sadaqa. Right. So whatever we leave is a charity. The question on reincarnation, I'll come to that in just a moment, as soon as I just finish this topic of Fadaq. Right, so I will discuss that. I'm just gonna let me just finish this. Right, so the issue here is that we know that happened. Okay, that she's denied this. Now, the question is, who was right here? Right, Khalid Serafi, I'll come to your question as well. Just un momento. Right, so and shukran, much love. Right, so I really want to explain this in some detail. So now we have these reports. We have it in Bukhari that Fatima radiallahu anha comes. She asks for this. In fact, I'm going to bring the hadith in front of you. So you can see this hadith here that Fatima is asking Abu Bakr. She asks for the sadaqat of Medina. And she asks for also Fadaq and Khaybar. Now, and then this goes on to mention, it gives a kind of story in Abu Bakr saying, no, that look, I'm just going to leave it as how the Prophet had it, and that the Prophet kind of oversaw things. He kind of oversaw it, but not as his property, but as a guardian, as a manager of it, basically. And it actually belongs to the Muslims. And then it mentions that, and then this went on to Umar, and then Umar kind of allowed the guardianship or the managing of it to Ali and Abbas. And then, but that's of the Bani Nadir land, but Fadaq and Khaybar he kept control of under the state. And then it mentions that in other narrations it does go on that this, in the time of Uthman, is then given to Marwan. Now, I want to highlight here, there's some important points, right? And that is, it's a really important question. This land of Fadaq, or fate, what we're calling fate, if we're spelling it as Fay and then with an apostrophe for the Hamza, fate. Now, fate, does one own fate? Or is he simply managing it? Because this is what Allah says that you have obtained without having to struggle for it. So it belongs lillahi walil rasul walidhil qurba wal yatama wal masakini wa ibn sabil. Now, does it belong to the general public? Is this an endowment or is this personal property? Here, there is a difference of opinion amongst scholars on what fate should and ought to be. Now, this really, if one can understand that, they understand the whole debate. Abu Bakr radiallahu an denies Fatima this based on his understanding that this is really not personal property. This belongs to the state, belongs to the general Muslims. So her, Fatima radiallahu anha, her perspective was that this belonged to the Prophet himself. Now, the Shia sources seem to indicate, they claim that Fatima radiallahu anha during her lifetime was gifted this by the Prophet. And she simply came to Abu Bakr to just kind of state her claim. And Abu Bakr denied it. So this is why some of the Shia then go on to say, so this is, he usurped, he kind of stole her land from her. Now, some of them claim that, they go to that extent then. Within the Sunni sources, like in Abu Dawud, there's a hadith that the Prophet, in his lifetime, Fatima asks her for Fadaq and these lands, and the Prophet said no. He doesn't give it to her. Now, one might say, well, that doesn't sound like, is that the case? The Prophet would have surely given it to her. But actually, in the Sunni sources, you do see there's another very famous hadith in the Sahi, in Sahih Bukhari, I believe, where where Fatima sees that there's many more servants have been brought in by the state, and she comes to the Prophet and complains about her struggling with household work and asks for a a slave, a servant to kind of help her. And the Prophet, when he finds out that this is what she came for, he comes to visit her and he tells her that, shall I tell you something better than that? And that is to recite this dua every day. But he doesn't give her the slave. Now, my point is that within the Sunni sources, it appears that during the lifetime of the Prophet, Fatima was not given this, was not gifted this. Although the Shia sources claim it was, so that changes the kind of debate slightly from the two perspectives. We all agree that during Abu Bakr's, after the Prophet ﷺ, Fatima comes to Abu Bakr, she asks for it, she isn't given it. She is upset with Abu Bakr. That much is kind of true. And I do think from an inheritance perspective, Fatima radiallahu anha was right. I feel, because looking at it and looking at these arguments from the Quran, but this is the thing, I kind of now feel both were right in their own way. And I want to explain this, that Fatima, in the sense that in the Quran it mentions that the prophets do inherit, like وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانَ Dawood, and Sulaiman inherited from Dawood. And we know that wasn't just prophethood. We know that the kingdom of David goes on to become the kingdom of Solomon. It becomes one of the most powerful kingdoms in its day and age, and one of the most wealthiest, kingdom of Solomon. So we know that was wealth. We know that you've got Zakaria saying, alayhi salam, in the Quran, وَإِنِّي خِفْتُ الْمَوَالِيَ مِنْ خَلْفِ, I fear these people after me, that Rabbi habli, that grant me a child. He says to Allah, يَرِثُنِي, that may inherit from me, وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوب. So we know that this inheritance thing does seem to the Quran seems to suggest or incline that they do inherit. And when Allah says to the Prophet, Yusikumullahu fi awladikum, Allah tells you about your children that inheritance is like this, and a girl gets this much and a boy. Allah ought to have then said, by the way, we don't mean you, Ya Rasulullah, we mean normal people, rest of the Muslims, not the Prophet. But here the Prophet is being revealed onto, like this verse, but yet it doesn't include him and there's no mention of this. I do feel that that is a weak argument from that perspective. So I do agree with Fatima radiallahu anha in that sense about inheritance. However, after looking into this in a lot of detail, I do see that the debate, if not about inheritance, if about fame, makes more sense. That fay belonged, because it was so much wealth, it was something the state needed to support the general Muslims, like travelers, times of crises, times like these things can't become personal properties. That the Imam, whatever he gets as an Imam, is not really his personal property. So if today an Imam went out on war and he got a certain land in truce and that becomes fate, then that really is not his personal property to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to give this to my nephew. That's not how, that would upset a lot of Muslims, because they'd be like, no, this is Muslim general kind of welfare property. It's an endowment. So I see that angle of Abu Bakr as more correct, although the line of arguing of mirath seems to not then make a bit of sense, that because they're discussing inheritance, whereas they should have been really discussing fate. So that's the thing. One thing that definitely gets quite, I think after Abu Bakr, Umar radiallahu an in Sahih Bukhari mentions that he gives the guardianship of it to Ali and Abbas, and then they start arguing over it. And what happens, in fact, Bukhari seems to use his words that they insult each other and actually swear at each other, and it mentions the swears as well. This is Ali and Abbas to each other, and then it mentions Umar saying to them that, look, I didn't give this to you as your personal, property. I gave you to just manage it. But by the way, those who manage it do get to benefit from it. They can keep the benefits, but they don't own the actual thing. So here it mentions in our riwayat that Ali overcomes Abbas and manages to keep it. Now, this is what some of the riwayat mention. Now, then in the time of Uthman, and I'm not quite sure, I think here there is a question mark, it becomes hazy, because Uthman seems to give it to his cousin Marwan. I'm not quite sure what was going on there. Maybe Uthman at that time felt that people don't really need it or whatever, or maybe I'm gonna, I since as I'm the Imam I can do. So he gives it to Marwan. Does he give it to him as ownership, or does he give it to him as just managing? I would think he gives it to him as managing. Why? Because otherwise it would have been the inheritance of Marwan's kids. But you see Marwan's son after him, Abdul Malik, who becomes the king, the caliph, and then his son, you get Walid and Sulaiman. They ought to have inherited it. But in the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz after them, and he's not from Abdul Malik, he's from Abdul Malik's brother, Abdul Aziz. He says, I'm giving this back, I'm returning it to how it was in the time of Abu Bakr and Umar. And he says that this was wrong, I disagree, it should be like how it was. So he gives it, restores the guardianship back to the family of the Prophet. And then what happens is, in the Abbasids' time, because they felt that Ali snatched it from Abbas, as the Hadith says, they snatch it back. So Mansur snatches it back, then Ma'mun gives it back, then Mutawakkil snatches it back, and it just becomes a kind of a toy, really. But there was something really interesting that needed to be highlighted here, and I mentioned this, by the way, in the symposium I went to, that I said that, look, if this was such a key issue, one thing that there's a huge kind of a pothole in this argument, and that is during the reign of Ali after Uthman, when he becomes caliph, he never takes it back. And then some of the Shia Imams said to me that, look, yeah, but that's because Ali, he didn't want to, because, like, they gave me a few answers. One was because, no, land is given to you, you don't demand it. I said, look, come on, that doesn't really, that's a weak response, because truly speaking, he comes to Umar asking for it, demanding it. So we know he was passionate about it. He even overcomes Abbas on it. So we know he was passionate about it. So the other argument they gave was that Ali radiallahu anh at that time, for the sake of unity. But that was a weak argument as well, because during Ali radiallahu anhu's time, he actually goes to war against several companions of the Prophet, including the wife of the Prophet and other people. So I don't think unity it doesn't make any sense. And since Fadaq was so fertile, it would have been an excellent resource for his army, the kind of supplies and things like this, because Ali radiallahu anh spends most of his caliphal rule, the 4 or 5 years he has, in civil war. So he would need resources. And the fact that it's so close to Medina, and the Umayyads, who he was fighting against later on, or the Khawarij, were up north in Damascus or Iraq, he could have easily taken Fadaq, but yet he never even mentions Fadaq. He doesn't really, and so I feel that this is a huge kind of, it's a huge question mark, that why did Ali, if this is such a big deal, why did Ali radiallahu anh not take it in his lifetime as a caliph? And I feel that none of the Shia responses seem to make sense. So one of the Shia kind of students of knowledge did say to me that this was a metaphor. Fadaq, it was never about Fadaq. It was a metaphor about the caliphate. So when Fatima radiallahu anh came to Abu Bakr, she really came saying that he ought to be the Imam. I found that a bit weak as well, because one, it just doesn't really sit right. Two, if she's coming to Abu Bakr, then she's kind of acknowledging that he's the Imam. And I don't know, but so I wanted to really go over this and sum this up, that the key issue here, I felt that Fatima radiallahu anh, just in the argument of inheritance, I felt that she was kind of right, that prophets do inherit. And you can't really use that as an argument. That's my personal understanding. However, from the argument of fate, the land that an Imam gains during non-combatant kind of war, that I would feel doesn't become his personal property. It becomes the property of the general public, the welfare. So I would fall in line with that. I think that would really be the crux of this issue. I did have a little theory as well, and I don't mean to. This is just coming from, we were just discussing this, and so this could be completely off, but I'll just share it with you. I did feel that maybe because Fatima radiallahu anha in her claim asks for so much, the quantity is so much, maybe that was overwhelming, which led to an instant denial. Because she asks for the sadaqat of Medina, of Bani Nadir, of Khaybar, of Fadaq. She asks for it, like all of that. Maybe I just thought. I mean, this is pure speculation. But I felt maybe because it was so overwhelming, and in the time of Abu Bakr, there's the social distress, there's the Musaylim al-Kadhab, there's all these things, people, Bani Hanifa saying, we're withdrawing our resources, we're not going to pay anymore, we're not going to give zakat, we're not going to give funds. What do? There's an army of Usama already being dispatched, where do they get the resources from? And all of a sudden, Fatima radiallahu anha comes, and she doesn't just ask for a particular, she asks for the Medina resources, she asks for the Khaybar resources, she asks for Fadaq. So I felt maybe it was kind of overwhelming quantitative, from a quantitative approach. And that's why maybe Abu Bakr radiallahu anh just instantly denied it. And if it hadn't been that much, maybe he wouldn't have denied. This is pure speculation. I don't mean to, this is with the utmost love for all of these companions. I do love them. I'm not somebody, I disagree in that sense with the Shia approach. I do, believe, and I've got a video that, look, all the companions, I kind of love them. I do feel that they were human, and that absolutely human. It's not that they were kind of angels or anything, and naturally they would have had disagreements and made mistakes, but I just feel that that's what led to that ijtihadi response, that immediate response. Because you see, the other companions do disagree with Abu Bakr later on. But I hope that's of some help. I just want to sum that there is you can't resolve these issues, but at least you can have some clarity on them. Guys, I hope that's of some help. Let's move on. We've got the masala to get to as well. I've been asked, right, about somebody said, just to follow up on that, somebody said, so what he did was wrong. You see, I believe I'm in line with Abu Bakr radiallahu an. He's thinking in terms of fate. So the argument from fate, I feel Abu Bakr is right. The only problem is, in the hadith, it doesn't mention that. It mentions the argument from a point of inheritance. Now, inheritance, I feel Fatima radiallahu anha was right. So I feel that Fatima was entitled to inheritance, but this land, I do personally feel, was fate. Or maybe most of it, if not some of it, maybe wasn't, but most of it was the general Muslim. It belonged to the general state, not to a personal property. It wasn't but the only kind of confusion is in the hadith, it doesn't mention fate, it mentions mirath, like the Prophet said, we don't leave inheritance. So it's all muddled up. So I feel they're kind of both right, but from different perspectives. And then I was just adding the human element of maybe. That was just pure speculation. That's just me thinking, I may be wrong. So, and it's not to, by the way, insult anybody. I don't want people to think that, oh my God, he's thinking Abu Bakr wasn't thoughtful or something like this. I do feel that, when we're asked things that I do feel that Abu Bakr was one of the closest people to the Prophet ﷺ, to the extent that in the Sahi Hadith, when the Prophet is asked by a lady that, look, I need to settle some financial affairs, and I've got to do this and I'll come back. And the Prophet says, yeah, come back. And she says, فَإِن لَمْ أَجِدْكَ, what if I come back and I don't find you? And it says, كَأَنَّهَا تَعْنِي بِهِ الْمَوْتِ, she intends by, what if you're no longer alive by the time I finish these things and come after a few years? And he says, Fati Abu Bakr, come to Abu Bakr. And I do feel that, he has his an amazing maqam in Islam. Radiallahu anhum jami'an. Cool people, let's move on with that. Right, so is it permissible to perform, to purchase loans, and by turning them into performing ones, and foreclosing properties aren't paid by borrowers. Look, I do feel that I've got a detailed video on interest and mortgages, and I feel that these things, mortgages and whatever, are not haram. I've got a very lengthy video explaining it. That said, I'm not quite sure I fully understand this question, Khalid, but if it means kind of doing people over, then I'm against that, oppression and things. I don't think it's fair to just kind of exploit people because they don't have money and to kind of chuck them out of their homes. But if you mean just buying property and using it as business and buying more, then I feel that that is permissible. Right, so reincarnation, I'd been asked. Yes, reincarnation. I don't believe in reincarnation in that sense, if that's what reincarnation means to what it generally is understood as, your soul kind of comes out and comes back to this world as another soul. But I feel that the ruh is connected. Right, so I feel that the ruh is connected, the arwah are connected, and because of that connection, maybe people, this consciousness being collected, this social consciousness, maybe people feel as though they have been reincarnated. So I feel that it's the reincarnation theory from some perspective. If we're talking about arwah being connected and then ultimately connected to God, then the Quran also does mention things like that, but not quite in the way that, like in Hinduism or Buddhism, it's being mentioned. So I would say that this is almost like the story of the blind men and the elephant, and having to describe it, and people have grasped a different part and then describing it accordingly, right? So in that sense, the arwah, they are connected, I feel, and then ultimately they're connected to God. So I do feel in that sense one could think or experience, maybe because of this connection, they think they've been here before, or they've had a past life. Or I don't believe that they have had a past life in this dunya. I believe that in this world, our lives are just limited, YOLO in this dunya, and then we move on. I do feel that what we will move on as will be more consciousness related. But yeah, so I hope that makes some sense. What I meant, Mark Lonzetta, what I meant earlier on, should we as a principle have only public funding of elections compared to corporate bribery of politicians that exist today, to not bribe the judges? Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Mark, and that is an interesting question. The issue will be, I think there should be some regulation. I think it's fair to say that people can kind of invest, but then you're right. I mean, people with more money then get to tip the elections because they've got more funding. But then at the same time, if you control it, then you're kind of not allowing people to exercise their liberties. It's a really tough one, really. But I do agree that you get the multi-millionaire and billionaire corporations are going to fund people that support the elite, and then they're going to get more funding, and then they can advertise more and do stuff. And we've all watched that the Netflix kind of documentary on it, which was really scary, by the way. Somebody asked, what's my thoughts on Amir Muawiya radiallahu anh? I see Sayyidina Muawiya radiallahu anh as a great figure in Islam. I do highly respect him. I understand that they had disagreements amongst the companions. I actually kind of like the statesmanship of Muawiya. He was incredibly astute and really knew how. Some people are cut out to rule, and I would feel that Muawiya was one of those people that was cut out. He's cut from that cloth. Like, he knew how to rule. And you can't deny that. I mean, in his 40 years of rulership, he never within Sham had an uprising against him. Like, that's just amazing, isn't it? And I quoted the story once where he went past he was going past this place, and this lady was complaining. And she's saying, and she used to be really pro-Ali and anti-Muawiyah. And he said that, I've heard your crops or whatever. And she said she was complaining that she didn't have the crops and things like this. And he said, so would you like me to assist you from the state fund to give you some? And she said, yeah, okay. And he said, okay, I'll give you. And then he said to her, he said, if it was Ali, he wouldn't give you, because he would say, no, there's a certain system and I'm not just going to give you. And she says, yeah, that's because he's more just. So Muawiya just laughs. You gotta love it though. He kind of laughs and he says to the guy, he says, give her the crops. And I just love that narration, like the way, I don't know, it's amazing. Right, people, I think I've answered all the questions. I know some people had sent some super chats, and I did want to make sure I definitely, obviously, serving my cause, want to make sure I did respond to them. Well, that's all it's letting me go back to, and here I've definitely answered Mark's question. Cool, people. I think let's get to the masala segment, people. Those of you that are aware, right, our beloved people, our beloved Sheikh Asrar. So first of all, those of you that don't know, Sheikh Asrar has had a debate, people, and he decided to debate a Christian, and for the sake of Islam, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, right? And so first of all, he really surprised me, because in this debate, he says things which he's kind of been trying to really have a go at me about, and then just because he gets embarrassed in front of this Christian, he says the same things. It's like, it's so shocking. So this Christian basically kind of bashes him a bit with all these insulting, ridiculous hadith in Bukhari. Oh, your child marriages are allowed. This is allowed. That is allowed. And what is our beloved's response? Look.
If you notice in the presentation, not a single verse of the Quran was quoted. The individual, my interlocutor, went straight onto the hadith. That's like me not quoting the Bible to Christians and moving on to extra religious literature, because hadith is not above criticism. Even Sahih al-Bukhari, there is, like you have criticism of Bible criticism.
Even Sahih al-Bukhari?
Reading hadith literature, when a hadith report is solitary in its nature, the text can be criticized by scholars. Even though they say Sahih, what they mean by Sahih is that the overall work is Sahih. But you notice child marriage is prohibited in the Quran. But that was not quoted.
Even though Hanafi fiqh allows it, but yahan talfiq.
Read a hadith which contradicts the Quran, they can reject the hadith, but they do not reject the Quran.
For you to obey Muhammad, you have to go to the hadith.
MashaAllah. Sheikh bin Baz is speaking right now.
Muslims are simply rejecting the Sahih Bukhari hadiths. I will come to that as we go on.
Ibn Ishaq's book is open to criticism, like the text of Bukhari is open to criticism. There are texts.
Wow.
Sahih Muslim,
the text of Bukhari. Yeah, I don't get it. I honestly do not get what is going on. Why has he been criticizing me all this while for criticizing Bukhari, gets in front of a bunch of Christians and says, what's wrong with criticizing Bukhari? Toba, toba. Gustakh akhiyan, kitte ja ladiyan. Toba, toba, toba. No. So, people, I'm really intrigued by the Lion of Ahl Sunnah. And what the Lion of Ahl Sunnah did is to prove his claim that Islam is always al-Islam ya'lu wa la yu'la alayh. Islam is always on top, people. Therefore, to prove it, what, you're going to bring some arguments? No, yeah. You're going to write some books? No, yeah. You're going to do some detailed analytic refutation? No, yeah. I'm going to drink poison. Huh? I'm going to what? I'm going to drink poison to prove it.
Go crazy. Go stupid. Go crazy. Go stupid. Go crazy. Yeah. Go stupid.
So,
Go
crazy.
It says, just drink the poison, get a date. It should help you.
rat poison people. Allahu Akbar.
Okay?
Allah. Allah.
Date? Can someone go and get a date? And also, can someone check if it is poison or not?
Rat poison people. Rat poison. To prove that Islam is correct.
Wow! Oh my God!
Now we know that Islam is definitely the haqq. Islam can only be the haqq now because we're drinking rat poison. Allahu Akbar. This, we've now found it, people. Look, here it is. This is... Rat-tat-tat. Here is the postman. What? Rat-tat-tat. Who can it be? This rat poison. This is how we prove the validity of Islam. And I honestly, I cannot believe this is how ridiculously absurd people have become. First of all, I want to say that, that, by the way, this was nothing but drama. That wasn't actually real rat poison. And what's happened is Sheikh Asrar didn't realize this was going to go viral. And then when it went viral, you had some idiots praising him. So he felt too embarrassed to backtrack. So he's now just pretended to go with it without kind of fully affirming. He just said, look, we shouldn't really concern ourselves. Let's talk about the debate. Don't worry. Forgetting the fact that, one, it's haram to drink poison. Two, as an influential figure who many people follow, including many young people, to drink rat poison to prove the veracity, veritability, and truthfulness of Islam. So tomorrow some other idiots are going to say that, mashallah, I have got the proof. The proof is here. Allah. And then you're going to get some idiots that are going to either cause near-death experiences or die. Natural selection, I guess. But this was so irresponsible. What kind of proof is that anyway, that Islam is the strongest religion? Why? Because we're going to drink rat poison. So this was some of the tweets and the Kalandar always, I love his posts, has rat. So from now on, has rat Asrar, right? And there was this one. मैं हूँ कादरी सुन्नी रत tat tat. Right, so people, this, by the way, so this is those of you who don't know my beloved Hazrat, this is Asrar Ratvi Sahib. Ratvi Sahib, आप अच्छा डडियाल रट्टा, अच्छा रट्टा से ताल्लुक रखते हैं, अच्छा रट बहुत सोनी गल्ला करना So this is what we've got here, what this has come to, people. So today, to prove the veritability of Islam, to prove, people, which denomination within Islam, as Ratvi Sahib, obviously I'm taking into me the spirit of Hazrat Asrar Ratvi Sahib. I'm going to have a debate today, right here. I want to prove which denomination. So as a representative of Wahhabi Islam is this is a different Ratvi Sahib. Ratvi Sahib, right? We've got a Ratvi الشيخ فضيلة الشيخ الرتوي is here. هل تقول أن هذه الأشياء هي بدعة وحرام وشرك؟ لا نعم. We're gonna have a debate. Who is upon the haqq? So how are we gonna answer this? Wait a minute, people. What is Ratwi Sahib saying? I found it. You know, this wasn't easy. This was not easy, people. But the infamous guidelines to having a debate, the famous text, the lost text of the Rashidiyah that everybody's been looking for, the Rashidiyah, people, the Rashidiyah, I found it. This was it all along. You want to debate with the Rashidiyah? No, not the Rashidiyah. Not the Rashidiyah. I can't debate using the Rashidiyah. You must debate with the Rashidiyah. No. Oh, yeah. This is why Sheikh Asrar all this while, Ratwi Sahib wanted the Rashidiyah. It was so hard finding this, honestly. I eventually found it in Zara's bedroom. Amongst her books, it was the Rashidiyah, people. I found it, but it doesn't stop there. I'm sorry, I cannot debate with the Rashidiyah. Not anything but the Rashidiyah, please. It must be. I've got a better method. People. I've got a better method for this Wahhabi Ratwi Sahib. It is poison. Whoever is upon the haqq must drink the poison. No, I want the Rashidiyah. No, the true claim is with poison. Allahu Akbar. Oh, I'm not going to die alone. You better. Oh, people, this is the ridiculous nature. This is what Islam has got to. This is my little counterpart, Ratwi Sahib. So my Ratwi Sahib is sitting back there. This was a napkin. It's come off. Ratwi Sahib, you sit right there. So look how preposterous this has got, people. This has come down to how do we know something is the truth? We'll drink rat poison. What kind of... Can you imagine the armies in the past if they had Ratwi Sahib's logic? It would be like, oh no, guys, they've got a huge army, it's well prepared. And the army comes and they go, we are right in our claim. And you're like, well, no, I think we're right. And they're like, to prove it, we will all drink rat poison. And you go, huh? Wait, what? Okay. And then half an hour later, the army's dead. And you're like, oh, thanks. Well, right, guys. Okay, I guess intelligence, common sense isn't as common as we thought. Right, so the thing is this. Look, so some people have said, what about Khalid bin Walid radiallahu an? First of all, there isn't a single Sahih hadith that Khalid bin Walid drank poison. Not a single Sahih hadith. There's these few narrations in Tabarani and a few other texts, the Musnad of Ahmed and others. And what do they mention? Who's transmitting them? You've got them from, who's transmitting them? Abu Safar. And people who they've never met Khalid bin Walid in their lives. All the narrators say these are Mursal Riwayat. These people transmitting never met Khalid ibn Walid in his entire life. And the other narration that they present, it comes through Sufyan ibn Uyayna and An'ana, it comes through Ismail, who's actually been slated, and then they say there's a Rawi, Qais ibn Abi Hazim, who has met Khalid bin Walid allegedly. It's described as Munkarul Hadith. A Munkarul Hadith. This person is unacceptable in riwayat. So many people have problematized him from the Muhaddithin. These chains are not Sahih. So you bring about an incident that, okay, people have just used it to praise Khalid bin Walid over the past, and as a story, folklore, it's kind of come down, fine. And if it were true that in his time somebody presented it and he drank it, first of all, that's his action. Maybe he drank something which he knew wasn't, and somebody, but these things are usually just stories. Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anh was much more intelligent than that. Okay, he wasn't somebody like, just absurd, or somebody that was irrational, had no knowledge, wasn't strategic. He didn't have, to say, I know the way we'll settle this is, here's your poison, I'll drink it, then I'm dead. Or in this case, I'm not, but I could have been dead. Even though the scholars all say it's haram to drink poison. So, this riwayah of Abu Safar of Khalid bin Walid is not Sahih. It is not Sahih. Bring me a chain that has not been criticized, that stands up to the test. It doesn't exist. It's not in any of the major books of Hadith, right? Not in the Sahihain or whatever and things like that. There is a riwayah in Musnad of Ahmad, and I've shown it's not even connected and is problematized. And in Tabarani, who brings all kinds of absurd narrations. Secondly, even if somebody in the past did something like this, let's say they did, let's just say hypothetically, 800 years ago, there was a man who, with a Christian, said, if your religion is the true one, let's jump into this fire. And they call this mubahala. And they used to do this with Qadianis and other people as well. So they would say, whosoever, whoever's religion is the truthful one, God save them. Let me just, hello. Hello, hello. Is that back? Is that back, people? Can you hear it? I think what happened is is that okay? No sound? Is the sound back? Audio gone? Audio gone? Still gone? Still no audio? It's working. Okay, damn. So what I was saying is I was saying that there was the poet who says that Bada to khair bada, that alcohol is still alcohol. Hum to zahar bhi pee jaएं katil. I would even drink poison. शर्त तो ये है कि हमें बाहों में संभाले कोई. The condition is that it's in her arms. And I was saying that in our Ratvi Sahib's version, that would be, people are saying there's still no sound. It's coming as sound from here now. Damn. What is going on? Is this still no sound? It's showing me a sound output right now. It's showing me a sound output. I don't seem to... It's saying I'm definitely having sound output here. I can even see we can't hear you. It's okay. Some people are saying from the mubahala jumping, it's fine. Okay. Aa rahi hai. Okay, shukran. So I was saying about the mubahala that, look, this whole thing about in the past, you couldn't, even if somebody did jump into some fire, right, this doesn't mean that today you would do that. That's just stupid. Even if there was a figure 500 years ago, he said, you know what, if whichever religion is correct, what we're going to do is both of us are going to go out there and face this, I don't know, volcano erupting. Even if somebody said that, that's absurd for you to do it. Because this deen is one that is built on reason. Is that how people will outdo each other in proving the veritability, the truthfulness of their religions? That I know will drink poison, whosoever survives, survives. That's just crazy. And that's what I was saying in that poem, that the shart ye hai ke baahon mein sambhale koi, that I would drink alcohol. Bashir Badr says ke bada to khair bada, zahar bhi pee jaएं. Sorry, Katil says, Katil Shifai, hum zahar bhi pee jaएं Katil. That our Ratvi Sahib's version would be like, his version would be that bada to khair bada, hum zahar bhi pee jaएं Katil. Shart to ye hai ke Rashidiya ko sambhale koi. Somebody must just take care of the Rashidiya text, that's all. And I was mentioning that, really this book, he was so right. It's changed my life. Everything has just changed since I've got the Rashid. Blimey, I'm a new person. You guys don't know what you're missing out on. I mean, this Rashidiya book. I mean, is life even worth living if you haven't read the Rashidiya? I mean, just it's I mean, there you can see this raccoon meerkat kind of entertaining the hyena. It's just emotional, this. Rat-tat-tat-tat. Ratwi Sahib. Ratwi Sahib. Right, so people, I think this it's been amazing. It's really gone on so long. I just found this whole drinking poison thing so absurd. And I'm shocked at individuals who are really celebrating it as he's a true wali of Allah. Why? Because he has drank poison, and so he didn't die. The warrior. Oh, there's the little sword. Huh? Sword. You. So I think this is the, and now you're going to get some idiots who are going to actually try this probably. So as a responsible person, seriously, that there's safeguarding concerns there. How can a person who is a figurehead do something like this live? Because there's so many, pretend, and it was drama. Honestly, he was lying. I'm telling you. And this is even worse, because now the Christians will say that, oh, this is all your religion is. It's just full of charlatans. All you do. And they're going to say that's what your prophet did as well. And this is my point. It's so stupid. And Asrar Ratwi Sahib just didn't think this was going to go as viral as it did. And now he's kind of stuck. And so he's pretended to, without directly saying it, just pretend that it was real. So yeah. What's the poet says that har mor pe mil jate hain. No, what is it? हर मोड़ पे मिल जाते हैं हमदर्द हजारों, शायद मेरी बस्ती में अदाकार बहुत हैं. And this is all it was, people. No tanki. That's all it was. Yo Ratwi Sahib, no tanki. ना मुन्ना ना, नौटंकी ना ही करने का है. ये this one not nice, this नौटंकी. Ayo naughty नौटंकी. Guys, I think, you know what? Right, so I think, are we allowed planned childbirth through IVF? Planned childbirth, I believe IVF is permissible, and things like this are permissible. Hisham ibn Urwa as a transmitter is problematic. You have to be a bit wary of him. Right, what do I reckon about Hasanat and Sister Sarah? Sister Sarah. I've seen those videos that have gone out, kind of. I mean, there's so much drama. I honestly don't know what's happening with them. People share these viral clips. I see it on one of them. They're discussing we're back and she's back. And then they've got, I think he's exposing her because he's got a video of her clubbing. Hi. Just so we can see ye roop. This roop sunehra. So just in case people think yaar koi roop hi nahi hai yahan pe yaar. So he's made a clip which I don't know whether he's leaked the clip himself. They've had some tiff or not. I don't know their drama, yaar. I can't keep up with it. But yeah, so sister. I don't know why people I don't call women sisters anyway. I mean, it's not my, I'm not really, the incest thing ain't really my thing. People, love you and leave you. I think we've gone on so much. We've discussed today, taken a look at the Ajwa dates. We've taken a look at some other complex issues. We've gone over the commentaries by scholars like Al-Mazari, Imam Mazari. We've taken a look at the Fadaq issue. What was the history? What is fate? The verses of the Quran, the disagreements between the companions. We've looked at our Asrar Ratwi Sahib and his bravery in proving, alhamdulillah. I had a bit of doubts about Islam, but once I saw him drink poison, there isn't a single doubt left now. I mean, atheism destroyed. Guys, it's been awesome. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up. If there are any issues, any questions, do reach out to me. Instagram, you can message me. I do get back to people's messages. There's a log on Facebook. I've got a backlog, but on Instagram, I do usually respond quite quickly. So do reach out to me if there's anything. I'll try and respond. Other than that, remember me in your kind du'as. Take very good care of yourselves, people. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Shukran for really hanging out all this, for putting up with these 2 hours of my mania, whatever it is. Much love. Mwah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. And those of you that haven't yet subscribed, I'm at a loss of words. Right, so